welcome back to Lippy Studio, and today I'm here to review a Colleen Hoover book and movie. I'm talking about Regretting You today. This came out last fall, and I just didn't review it because I was going through something at that time, a loss, and I don't even know why I went to watch it, but I went with my mom. A lot of mothers and daughters there, a lot of groups of girls there. There were some guys there, though, too. So I wasn't like the only one. It was an enjoyable experience with my mom to kind of have that moment with her as we were navigating this loss together. So I think, kind of going out of the theater, it's been a while. It's been about like 4 months since we went to see this, but I went ahead and rewatched it too on my own. I think originally we thought it was okay. There are parts that we did like and parts that we didn't like as much. So we were kind of mixed on the movie. I would say we enjoyed It Ends With Us better overall. Now, me and my mom both read the book It Ends With Us before we went to see the movie. For Regretting You, I read the book, she didn't. But she had watched the trailer, so she kind of knew what it was about. Plus, I had told her a few things before going into it. So we enjoyed It Ends With Us more because I think we both enjoyed the storyline that was trying to be told better, which is the cycle of abuse between generations and, letting go and ending the cycle. And I think overall we both agree that was just a better story than Regretting You, which is more soap opera-ish. You have a car crash and an affair being revealed at the same time. But there's like a good mother and daughter story through here too that we both agreed about. And Clara and Miller's relationship is really sweet. So originally I thought I would talk about the book and then talk about the movie, but I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to kind of talk about them both parallel to each other. I think that just makes more sense. So reading the back summary really quick, it says, Morgan Grant and her 16-year-old daughter Clara would like nothing more than to be nothing alike. Morgan is determined to prevent her daughter from making the same mistakes she did. By getting pregnant and married way too young, Morgan put her own dreams on hold. Clara doesn't want to follow in her mother's footsteps. Her predictable mother doesn't have a spontaneous bone in her body. With wearing personalities and conflicting goals, Morgan and Clara find it increasingly difficult to coexist. The only person who can bring peace to the household is Chris, Morgan's husband, Clara's father, and the family anchor. But that peace is shattered when Chris is involved in a tragic and questionable accident. The heartbreaking and long-lasting consequences will reach far beyond just Morgan and Clara. While struggling to rebuild everything that crashed around them, Morgan finds comfort in the last person she expects to, and Clara turns to the one boy she's been forbidden to see. With each passing day, new secrets, resentment, and misunderstandings make mother and daughter fall further apart, so far apart it might be impossible for them to ever fall back together. So, you read that back cover and you immediately think this is a mother and daughter story. The mother just doesn't want Clara to repeat the same mistakes that she did. She's just very overprotective of her. That's the storyline. And, they leave out really big details. They leave out the biggest one, which is the car accident and the affair. I mean, Jenny's not even mentioned in the synopsis, and Jonah's only indirectly mentioned. So they left out two pretty key players in all of this. So you don't really even expect what the inciting incident is, which is the affair and the car accident, finding out that Morgan's husband and sister were having an affair behind her back, and then they get caught by getting into a wreck and they die. So basically, you lose the two probably most important people who are closest to you, your husband and sister, and you find out that they were being unfaithful to you. I mean, that's so hard. That's like, I don't even know what you would do in that situation. So it's kind of hard to judge the character for the choices that she makes. I found myself cutting Morgan a lot of slack throughout all of this. I don't think she did anything out of malice or anything that was like unforgivable to Clara. I think she handled the whole thing pretty well, all things considered. I felt like she kept herself together to be there for her daughter. And, that's kind of what you have to do. But the problem with it is that you have the Jonah of it all. And I really feel like adding the Jonah romance element was a mistake in all of this. I just think it was. And I know you're telling two parallel romances. I just didn't think the romance with her and Jonah was necessary in either the book or the movie. I feel like it would have been way more impactful if Morgan healed on her own, and maybe Jonah was there as like a friend. They were friends. They bonded together out of their shared trauma, but it didn't go to a romance, or maybe they left it open-ended, like something could happen between them in the future. But it's not the right time now, especially because this story takes place within like 6 weeks. In the movie, there's a scene where it shows Chris and Jenny's graves, and it says March 17th is when they died. And by the end, Miller's asking Claire to prom. Now, my prom was in early May. A lot of proms, proms are really anytime from early April to early May. It just depends. I'm going to assume that this prom is on the later end of that. So I would assume it's about 6 weeks since Chris and Jenny died is when Morgan and Jonah are getting together. And that's an issue. 6 months, maybe. But honestly, I think it would take several years before you would be ready to enter a new relationship in general, especially one with someone that your sister was like gonna get married to. So, there's so much history there. It would be one thing if Jonah was a stranger, someone she met, and that was like the plot. It wouldn't have been organic though, I guess. Like, it wouldn't have made sense for the story. I don't think a romance from Morgan was necessary at all, so I always say that was my least favorite part of the book, was the Morgan and Jonah romance. I didn't find myself rooting for them. It just, to me, Morgan even says at one point, like, what will we tell Elijah when he gets older, that we all just swap partners? That's a valid concern. So I understand you guys, like, had feelings for each other in high school and you chose not to act on them. I understand that, and, getting your second chance later on, but it just feels wrong that you only get the second chance because your partner's cheated on you, and two wrongs just don't make a right. And I really feel like they were trying to sell the opposite, that because Chris and Jenny screwed them over, they can screw each other. And I just don't like that message at all. Colleen does the two point of view alternating like perspectives a lot in her books. For It Starts With Us, she did the Lily and Atlas perspective. I know for Reminders of Him, which I'm about to read, it's a two perspective there too. This is two perspective with Morgan and Clara. I like the two perspective. I think it works really well for this, telling the story of mother and daughter as they work through their own personal shit. I think it works pretty well. So that is one thing I do like about the book. The two stories, they're separate, but they're similar with like the love story aspect of it. And they're both grieving in their own ways, clearly. They just grieve separately. I do think it felt like they could, like, I think when watching as a movie, it just felt very overloaded, the plot, because you have these two parallel stories going on, but they're both so loaded that I honestly wonder if this would have been better as two movies or a TV show. I think a TV show would have been better because you could have done so much more with it. You could have had more flashbacks. I think what we really could have used is more background on the affair. I know that Morgan chooses not to dwell on the affair and the specifics of it. Her and Jonah make that decision by the end of it, that they are just going to be together and they're going to forget about Chris and Jenny. And that's their choice. It's a good choice for them. I think we as the viewers, we want context. How long was this affair going on? That's the biggest question. Like how were they in love with each other, or were they just unhappy with their relationships and they just wanted like more, like better sex? It's hard to say what they wanted. We just don't get those answers. We know the letters exist out there, so it's clear that Colleen wanted to tempt us and think that we were going to get answers, and we just don't get those answers. Again, I understand it for Morgan. She wants to move on, but I think we want clarity. That was my biggest takeaway. I wanted clarity. I was hoping the movie would give us something, and it didn't. The movie gave us even less details into the affair as the book does. In the book, we don't necessarily get more details per se, but we get Morgan reflecting. And that's one thing the book's better at, is Morgan's perspective. It's much better. We get to hear what she's thinking, her immediate grief, the grief throughout, her feelings for Jonah. We get to feel all of it. We get her insights as to when she thought the affair started, her insights onto the affair in general. We get all of that. But in the movie, we don't really get any of that. We get very limited. We get the scene where she brings up the painting, You Don't Know Him Like I Do. We get that scene. I would say the strongest change between book and movie with Morgan is when she beats up Chris's car. I think that's a very valid reaction to someone in that situation to do. So I did like that change. And to me, that was the most, like, the most grief I saw of her character throughout the entire movie was that scene. And then her grief kind of went away after that. We see her drinking like once, but that's not really touched on, which could have been an interesting point to explore, as maybe she has a bit of a drinking problem for a while after the grief, because that's like a valid reaction too. Again, I feel like most reactions are valid with a tragedy like this, which is such an extreme tragedy like this. Most reactions are valid, except maybe for like hooking up with your sister's fiance 6 weeks after your partners die. I think that's a reaction that's not valid at all, but that's just my opinion. The book makes the affair less obvious. I'll give it that. It's more of a surprise when chapter 5 comes, and chapter 5 is it's probably it's the most intense chapter for sure out of all the chapters. It solely focuses on Morgan getting to the hospital. She finds out Chris was in an accident. Jonah comes. He finds out Jenny was in an accident. They find out they were in an accident with each other. But the reveal that they died doesn't come right away. We have Morgan reflecting, like, how did this happen? What are we going to tell Clara? Working through all of that. And then the end, they find out they die. In the movie, it takes place in like a 2-minute scene. There's no time to breathe. And it's a movie. I get you have to cut some stuff. Maybe it didn't make sense for a scene just in the waiting room with them talking. They wanted to get that reveal right away that they died. But it just felt very rushed. And yeah. So, but like in the movie, they throw in more, like, they give you more ideas that there's something going on. Even if you, like, say you didn't read the book, and you didn't even watch the trailer and you're going into this blind, maybe you wouldn't know exactly who's having the affair, but you would have an idea that there's some messed up stuff going on in this family. They throw in 2 different references to the affair during that birthday party scene towards the beginning for Morgan. They throw in Morgan saying Elijah looks just like Clara, and Jenny saying he looks just like Jonah, trying to cover that up. But it's awkward, and you can sense that it's there. The other one is when Miller gets brought up, and Clara says he has a girlfriend, so nothing's happening, and Jenny says he has a girlfriend, so nothing's going to happen. He's taken. And it's clear she's being a hypocrite right there. But they make it a bit more obvious that something's going on. They're not really subtle about it like they are in the book, which I think makes the affair a little bit like more expected that something's going on in the movie. I like that it's more subtle in the book because it's a little bit just in your face in the movie. The way they played it was weird. The dialogue was weird. I mean, you know that Chris and Jenny are messed up. They're messed up in all of this. There's no forgiving them. You can't forgive them for something like that. But it's just, I think they played it better in the book because it was more subtle and it was more unexpected. I mean, you read the back cover and you don't expect the affair at all. It comes out of nowhere, and that's kind of what makes the book good. But in the movie, it's not the same. And that's just where the movie struggles. The movie struggles with the affair, aftermath, and Morgan and Jonah's relationship, and honestly, the lack of grieving from Morgan's part. That's where the movie really struggles. Now, the thing the movie is much better at, is Clara and Miller's relationship. I'll be honest, when I read the book, I felt like I preferred Morgan's perspective better than Clara's. Clara and Miller's relationship was okay, but it wasn't my favorite. It was just kind of a boring teenage romance. In the movie, though, thanks to casting McKenna and Mason, they sold it for me. I was much more invested in their relationship than anything else going on because that's what they gave the most attention to. A part of me wonders if they knew the movie just wasn't going really well, so they just basically they just had, okay, McKenna and Mason though will sell this movie. They'll make everything else fine. They'll be the best thing in this movie. And I mean, that's what it turned out to be for, I think, a lot of people. They love their relationship and their chemistry, or at least just them on screen together, because Clara was kind of insufferable throughout all of this. I didn't think she was as bad in the movie as she was in the book. I thought she was a little bit more sympathetic, and I could tolerate her more in the movie. The thing is, with Clara, I feel like we get to see her show more grief. overall. And it's not much, but more grief than Morgan. We get after the funeral, we see her text her Aunt Jenny, and she doesn't respond because she's dead. Spoiler alert. And then we also get with her and Lexi, they go to Chris and Jenny's graves later on in the movie. I feel like we get to see her grieving a bit more. It's still not nearly enough. Like, let's be honest, Morgan, Clara, and Jonah should have all been in therapy, and we should have seen at least one scene with them in therapy. Because there's no way... and Morgan does reference in the book that she should put Clara in therapy, but she never does. She should have put her in therapy right away, because you lose your dad and your aunt. You need to... You need your time to process that on your own, but you also need to talk about it with someone that doesn't understand... that doesn't know the specifics. You need to talk to someone about it. Morgan did too, and Jonah did too, and that's another part I didn't like, is that they referenced therapy, and they didn't follow through. In the movie, they don't reference therapy at all. So therapy is underrated, and in a story like this, you need therapy. All the characters need therapy, every single one of them. I think they could have removed the Shelby of it all with the Clara and Miller relationship. I don't think that was necessary. But everything else with Clara and Miller was really good. I thought Lexi was hilarious. She was the much-needed comedic relief. She was funny in the book, but she was hysterical in the movie. She was one of my favorite parts. I honestly enjoyed much more the Clara and Miller high school stuff, and with Lexi too, much more than the Morgan and Jonah stuff. The problem with Morgan and Jonah is that there was just no chemistry with the actors. I didn't like Dave Franco in this all that much anyways, but Allison and Dave have no chemistry at all. So that didn't help me root for them. I wasn't really rooting for them in the book, but I found myself rooting for them even less in the movie. So, and we don't get Morgan's thoughts. How does she actually feel about Jonah? We get a flashback, but I don't know. It's just how do these two actually feel about each other? They say what they feel, but I feel like we don't really feel what they feel when there's no chemistry. And when you're setting up a plot that they're getting together 6 weeks after their spouses die, it just doesn't make sense, and it just doesn't work. I think the dynamic with Miller and his grandpa could have been explored more in Miller's family dynamics. I think that was a miss, but you only have so much time. Think about it. You have to write and balance Morgan and Clara's relationship as mother and daughter, Morgan's grief over Chris and Jenny, Morgan's relationship with Jonah, Clara's relationship with Miller, and then the whole affair. That's a lot to pack in. I think she could have done without something. I don't really know what that would be. I think this book was a little bit too loaded, but in the movie, it's even worse. You have an hour and 40-minute runtime, but it just feels too short for the story you're trying to tell, which is why I think this should have been a TV show. I would have liked a 6 or 8 episode show. We could have gotten a whole episode just with Chris and Jenny, and we get insights into the affair. I think it just would have worked so much better. With It Ends With Us, I think it worked as a movie, but with Regretting You, I think it could have been more, especially when you have that dual perspective and you have so much history with the character, with the 4 adults. I think a show would have been the better option. But movies, they're cheaper to make, right? And less time too. So I understand why they went that route. But yeah, so I think throughout all of this, I think the book, it's not as good as It Ends With Us. And I think the overarching concept of mother and daughter, I think, is a good plot. I think that's the best part of all of this, of the whole book, the book in the movie is that overarching thing. The movie added the Clara and Miller of it all. And thanks, if McKenna and Mason weren't the ones playing them, I think my interest would have been way less. So that was a great casting choice. Honestly, the casting, I felt like I could, I think the characters to me, the actors, reminded me of them. I thought Allison played Morgan great. I thought even the actress who played Chris and Jenny, that's who I pictured, kind of like that. But and Clara and Miller too. I think Dave Franco as Jonah was the only one that I just didn't think it worked really well. I didn't like his character in this at all. I didn't love him in the book, but I liked him even less in the show. I just couldn't get behind Morgan and Jonah once again, but I'm looking forward to reminders of him. I think the trailer looks promising. I think it looks more adult, like It Ends With Us. It looks like it's going to be just a better, deeper story, where I feel like the problem with this, it doesn't feel adult at all, even though a lot of it is because of what adults do and how they act and the choices that they make. This just feels very childlike. Not just because it's Clara and Miller, but because no one handles grief like they actually would in real life. The only thing was Morgan beating Chris's car in the movie was the only like actual grief I saw from her, in a few moments from Clara, but there's just nothing. The dialogue's chunky too. That's a struggle. I think the script could have been a lot stronger. Again, when you have such a tragedy and an affair going on and how messed up the plot is, you could at least write some good dialogue to reflect the source material and the content, but you just make it more childlike, and I just didn't think it worked for the story you're trying to tell. But let me know down below, what did you think of Regretting You? Did you like it better than It Ends With Us, like movie-wise? What are some of your other favorite Colleen Hoover books, and which ones should I read? I'll be honest, I'm only going to read the ones that have movies coming out. I read It Starts With Us because I wanted to know what happened next. But I know The Verity's coming out next year too. So I'm going to, I'll read that. And I'm going to read Reminders of Him. That's next on my list because that comes out in March, only a couple weeks. And I will review that too. So again, I have high hopes for that one. I think this movie, to me, I feel like the cast fit their characters better, except for Jonah. I think most of the cast, the cast was better. I think they fit the characters better than It Ends With Us, but the script was weaker and the story was weaker overall. So that's kind of how I felt about the two movies. But let me know down below which one you like better and what you think of Regretting You in general. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What do you think of the two relationships? I honestly think the movie focused way too much on romance. Clara and Miller are making out all the time, which they're teenagers, I get, but it focused way too much on romance, Morgan and Jonah, and way too much on cheating like it was normal. There's no stable relationships here. I mean, by the end, Clara and Miller are cute and sweet and all, but I just think the story is, I don't know. If they were to make it, I think it should have been a TV show, but I think this was one of the books they could have skipped. I'm surprised that it was made the second movie they made, because it came out not too long ago in 2019, and it's not even one of her more popular books. So I'm surprised that this was the second one made. But I'm just rambling at this point. Again, let me know down below what you think of all this. I'll see you guys soon. Bye, everyone.